A provincial court judge is questioning the credibility of a police informant whose testimony has been central in a major biker bust known as Project Forseti. The Saskatoon judge describes the informant, Noel Harder, as a master manipulator and a large-scale drug dealer. The bust targeted members of the Hells Angels and Fallen Saints motorcycle clubs. A number of people were charged, the prosecution counting on Harder's testimony to get convictions. The CBC's Charles Hamilton joins me now to talk about the potential implications of a judge expressing concern over this informant's character and credibility. Charles, lots of people involved in Project Forseti, but tell us about the case that brought this scathing judgment of Noel Harder.
Well, this was a written judgment by Judge Mativier. She was the judge in a case for a guy named Clint McLaughlin. McLaughlin was a Fallen Saints gang member. Among other things, he was up on a host of weapons charges. And in that case, Noel Harder was a key witness. In her written statement released this week, Mativier basically said that Harder was not credible enough to get a conviction, that, his credibility issues were the reason that she could not convict McLaughlin of these host of weapons charges that he was facing.
A strong statement. So what does this have to do with Project Forseti?
Well, Project Forseti was this big biker bust back in 2015. Those millions of dollars worth of drugs seized, a bunch of guns seized, and Noel Harder was the central informant in all of this entire bust. So, he was the one that was essentially snitching on other members of the Fallen Saints motorcycle gang. And, all along, defense lawyers have questioned Noel Harder's credibility. These are the defense lawyers for the bikers. But, when a judge is actually questioning his credibility, it's a lot more than a defense lawyer for a biker who's trying to defend his client. So it could have some pretty big implications going forward.
What does it mean going forward, do you think, for the Forseti case?
Well, there has been some convictions in the Forseti cases. There's been people already sent to prison, but the bulk of these cases are still before the courts. There's a major case involving criminal organization charges, and we don't exactly know what the evidence is in those cases. So it's still unclear how central Harder's testimony will be. But one expert that I spoke to said that credibility of informants is key to all of these kinds of cases. So he could play a pretty central role going forward. But again, it's all based on whether or not they have other evidence besides Harder's testimony to see if that will get some convictions.
Thanks so much, Charles.